The battlefield is evolving at a pace few could have imagined. Every few months, the rules of war are being rewritten. Technologies once considered impossible to mass-produce are now ubiquitous, transforming desperation into lethal innovation. Ukraine is responding with a constantly evolving arsenal. Tiny drones, clever interceptors, and tactics no one anticipated are reshaping the fight. This is no longer just a war. It is a revolution in warfare, and the world is watching closely to see who survives the next turn in this deadly chapter.
3 months, we're in a new stage. We're in something called the second revolution in military affairs, which is applying digital technologies to warfare. The first phase was in the 1980s and 90s when the United States started making things like smart bombs and cruise missiles. Now it's going on to much cheaper platforms because low-cost semiconductors are ubiquitous around the world, and anyone can make a drone. And so we've got Ukraine, which inherited part of the old brain trust from the Soviet missile and aerospace things, combined with a country that's desperate to survive, combined with these new inputs that they can bring in from abroad and making thousands of drones a day. So every 3 months, there's a new page. First, it was single-person drones. Then it was jamming. Then it was drones with missiles. Then it was water-based drones. Then it was mass drones. Then it was Shahed drones. Then it was Shahed drones that could do a limited amount of target selection. Now it's something called the octopus drone, which the Ukrainians are just starting to use, which is a drone intercept.
What Zeihan exposes is both terrifying and brilliant. Ukraine is not fighting by yesterday's rules. It is rewriting warfare in real time, exploiting every available advantage, from inherited Soviet-era expertise to cutting-edge technology. Each month delivers a new weapon, a new tactic, a new surprise, keeping an invader disoriented, reactive, and exposed. As the battlefield evolves, the consequences are no longer confined to the front lines. The shock waves now reach deep into Russia itself. The heart of the country is trembling. Moscow, once presumed untouchable, has become a stage of disruption and fear. Rostov burns. The very symbols of Russian power, its refineries, its airspace, its cultivated sense of invincibility, are being systematically dismantled. Even as Russia reels under unprecedented pressure, its leadership lashes out beyond its borders, threatening NATO nations in a desperate attempt to project strength where little remains. This is the moment when desperation turns into aggression, when weakness masquerades as menace, and the world watches a state teeter on the edge of unraveling. The explosions began quietly, almost deceptively. Then, through coordinated strikes across multiple regions, they erupted with the force of a nation confronting the consequences of its own aggression. Moscow, the seat of power, the core of the so-called invincible empire, became an active war zone. Ukrainian drones, silent, precise, and relentless, struck legitimate military targets within the capital itself. City officials scrambled to account for each impact, each incoming drone, each radar failure. The illusion of Moscow as an impregnable fortress collapsed. Even deep within its borders, Russia was no longer safe. The aura of invincibility once used to intimidate both the world and its own citizens was shattered. Generals who believed themselves secure far from the Ukrainian border suddenly realized they, too, were within reach. Then came Rostov, a critical hub in Russia's military-industrial network. The Novoshakhtinsk oil refinery was engulfed in flames after a precision strike involving 6 Storm Shadow missiles. This was no ordinary facility. The refinery produces aviation fuel, the lifeblood of Russian air operations. Every successful strike means fewer aircraft in the sky, fewer attacks on Ukrainian cities and soldiers, and, ultimately, lives spared. The impact extends beyond military calculations. Destroying such infrastructure strikes at the core of Russia's economy, undermining the Kremlin's ability to finance continued aggression. Oil, once a pillar of Russian power, now trades at roughly $35 a barrel, forcing discounted sales of reserves to avert internal crises. The shock reverberates through Moscow's corridors of power and global markets alike. Predictably, Russia responded with bluster. Putin deployed spy aircraft and provocative flights from Poland to northern Britain and down toward Romania, signals meant to intimidate NATO. In reality, they exposed desperation. These displays came not from strength, but from a nation at its weakest point in modern history. Maps of Russia's regions, now effectively active war zones, tell the real story. A country overstretched, economically drained, and militarily exposed. Despite the rhetoric, Russia has never been weaker. Its threats cannot conceal the erosion of its power. The skies over Europe became the stage for this faltering intimidation. Polish air forces scrambled as Russian aircraft approached NATO airspace. Drones and surveillance planes tested defenses and were met with immediate, proportional responses. Any incursion became a legitimate defensive target. Poland's aviation response reinforced a simple principle: sovereignty will be defended. These encounters were more than tactical reactions. They were lessons. Aggression has consequences, and NATO will not yield to hollow threats. Meanwhile, inside Russia, the war has become impossible to ignore. Distant explosions rattle neighborhoods. Flights are canceled. GPS systems fail. Daily life gives way to uncertainty and fear. Ordinary citizens are forced to confront the reality that their leader failed not only a rapid military campaign, but the grand illusion of an untouchable Russian Federation. The cracks in the Kremlin's narrative widen by the day. While leaders scramble to project strength abroad, the destruction of infrastructure, especially in the oil and aviation sectors, deepens Russia's strategic failures. The loss of a single refinery like Novoshakhtinsk ripples outward. Aviation fuel shortages restrict their operations. Bombing campaigns slow. Aerial dominance fades. Financially, the consequences are severe. Disrupted exports and crippled production punch holes in the national budget. State-owned enterprises falter. An already sanctioned economy edges closer to collapse. These are not inconveniences. They are existential pressures, and Ukraine has exploited them with precision and resolve. Putin's symbolic Christmas night flights near the Norwegian Sea were closely monitored and intercepted by NATO forces. The message intended was defiance. The reality revealed fragility. Across the Baltics, drones and balloons drifting from Belarus into Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia disrupted airspace, closed airports, and strained defenses. Each supposed demonstration of dominance instead highlighted Russia's vulnerability and overextension. The geopolitical implications are stark. Weak leadership in parts of the West risks emboldening the Kremlin, but history offers a clear warning. Appeasing aggression only invites greater catastrophe. Peace is not preserved through hesitation, but by neutralizing the forces that sustain violence. President Volodymyr Zelensky's speeches underscore this truth, calling for unity, resilience, and decisive action. Supporting Ukraine, defending NATO territory, and upholding international rules are not optional. They are essential to global stability. Amid the turmoil, one reality stands unmistakable. The Russian Federation, once feared, mythologized, and projected as unstoppable, is unraveling. Burning streets in Moscow, shattered refineries in Rostov, and failed attempts to intimidate NATO expose a state driven more by fear than capability. Putin's threats echo a strength that no longer exists. The empire he imagined is fraying. This chapter of 2025 will be remembered not only for destruction, but for the resilience and ingenuity of those who fought back. Ukrainian drones, precision strikes, and strategic clarity have overturned assumptions, proving that even the mightiest can be humbled by determination, innovation, and unity. The destruction of critical military and economic infrastructure, paired with NATO's refusal to be intimidated, marks a turning point. What was once untouchable is now exposed. What was once dominance is now revealed as weakness. Every intercepted drone, every thwarted incursion, reinforces a fundamental truth: aggression never comes without consequence. And every moment of unity among Ukraine supporters demonstrates how resolve and coordination can reshape history. This moment in 2025 is historic. The lesson is unambiguous. A state built on aggression but hollow in capability cannot sustain its threats. Moscow's trembling skyline, Rostov's burning refineries, and NATO's steady vigilance testify to a truth long ignored by the Kremlin. Bravado cannot conceal decay. This is not merely a war between nations. It is a moral reckoning, a clash between coercion and principle. And as this reckoning unfolds, the choice before the world is clear. Remain united, confront aggression decisively, and defend the principles of sovereignty, justice, and peace. Russia's posture may continue, but the evidence is undeniable. Its foundations are eroding, its resources depleted, its strategy failing. And in this unfolding chapter of history, it will be the courage of those defending their homeland and the resolve of those holding aggressors accountable that defines the future for generations to come.